So, thank you very much. So, good afternoon, all, and welcome to this talk. My name is Vicky Diaz, and I'm the Heart Support Service Coordinator with the Arts Heart Foundation. Our speaker today is Eileen Gillick, and we are delighted to have her here today. We are celebrating the Heart Failure Awareness Week with a variety of in-person and online events. And you will have more information later in your chat box. You can just check for information on the events and also registration. So as you might know, the Heart Connect service is the Irish Heart Foundation Heart Failure Service. And what we do is support diagnosed patients nationwide. So if you or someone you know has heart failure or any other person that you might know, you can refer yourself or your friends or family members to our service through the link in the chat. We will be sharing this in a minute. And also, you will find links to our Heart Support Network Facebook group, which is a fantastic resource for our patients. And also, we will be sharing a survey, and it will be greatly appreciated if you can take a minute just to fill the survey for us. So now a little bit of housekeeping. We will be having a Q&A at the end. So please just think of queries that you might have. And if there's anything that you want us to answer for you, just put it into the chat box. We will kindly ask you to keep yourself muted during the session. And if you experience any issue during the talk, please let us know through the chat. And also at the end, we will be sharing a short resources and throughout the chat that you can just copy the links. Or if you find that you didn't have time enough for this, you can also get back to us after the talk, and we will be sharing the resources with you. Now, talking about Eileen Gillick, she's a dedicated registered nurse, and she's a member of the Irish Heart Foundation Patient Support Service, and she focuses on supporting individuals recovering from strokes, heart conditions, and managing chronic cardiac conditions. We are so happy to have her here today. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Eileen. I will just hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Hi, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. We are going to talk about self-care today, a term that's often mooted as the panacea of, looking after yourself when you're living with heart failure. But today we're going to kind of break it down. What does it mean? Why should we do it? And kind of the how-to, so what areas you can look at to start developing your expertise in self-care. And it's aiming to help you to empower you to manage your own health as effectively as possible. So there's lots of things within your diagnosis in your life which you can't control, but we're going to look at the things where you can make a difference, and you can hopefully improve the quality of your life, your health, your general well-being. I'm going to do a really quick stop on some background about what heart failure is and some of its causes. I'm going to do that really quite quickly because I know most of the people on this call will be aware of that. And then we'll move on to self-care, why it's important to even consider it or to know about it. And then we'll, like I say, we'll talk about the how-to. My slide isn't moving on. There we go. Okay, so first of all, understanding heart failure. So heart failure is the inefficiency of the heart pump to meet the requirements of the body. So when the heart does a heartbeat, it squeezes together or contracts, all right? And when this squeezing together, the heartbeat, that contraction, when it's not working as effectively as possible, we're not getting enough oxygenated blood out into the body to feed everything that our body does for us, we can be considered that we're in heart failure. And this can cause symptoms of and signs of like a fluid congestion. So you have a buildup of fluid in that area. Just to note that heart failure is a chronic syndrome. So when we say this, it's a long-term syndrome. It's not something that can be cured. But thankfully, with modern medicine and really significant changes, even in the last decade, so these changes are actually quite recent, people can live very well with heart failure. And we're learning more about it every day. So some common causes and risk factors for heart failure. So we have over a kind of on the top left, we have the most common ones, and then the bottom right, we're going to the kind of the less common ones. And then the others are somewhere in the middle. So coronary artery disease, long-term uncontrolled high blood pressure, and heart rhythm problems, and diabetes there, and heart valve disease. They're probably the most common causes of most heart failures. Then we've less common causes like complications through people living with obesity. We've some drugs, and these drugs include things like alcohol, recreational drugs, and some types of chemotherapy. Heart failure can be brought on by infection, viral or bacterial. It can be brought on by excessive smoking, inactivity, and for lots of people, or some people, should I say, there is an unknown cause. So heart failure occurs and we don't really know the cause of it. With heart failure in modern day medicine, it is diagnosed much earlier than it used to be. So people are getting their diagnosis really when they're maybe quite well, or they have been unwell for a short period of time. So the diagnosis, due to good tests and developing awareness with medical practitioners, the diagnosis is coming earlier. So this is good because we can manage it and we can prevent further damage to the heart once we're diagnosing that bit earlier. Okay, so now we're here today to talk about self-care. So I looked up a couple of definitions of what self-care is. For those of us working with people living with heart failure, we throw around this kind of thing about self-care and expect people to understand it or take it as we see it. But I thought these definitions might help us develop into, what's our thinking around self-care? What's your own thinking around self-care? So one definition is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve your own health, or the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, and particularly during periods of stress. I particularly like the second definition here because it's about the active role. And I have found that once people become have an awareness of the importance and the impact really self-care can have, it really helps people have a purpose in the management of their own condition. And I have noticed in people that it does reduce feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, anger, and things like that. I would say today we're going to discuss lots of different ways in which you can practice self-care and lots of different aspects, from medication to sleep to exercise. And you might feel, if you're new to this, you might feel like, oh, Janie, she's asking me to do an awful lot here. I'm not at all. I would say take one thing. If you take one thing from today, you're practicing self-care. And then in time, you'll become more active. You'll become more aware of what you need to do for yourself. So your self-care is something that you can grow and build. Why do self-care? Well, it's associated with improved quality of life, and that's across the literature everywhere. I haven't read a research paper that has said self-care doesn't help in some way. So some papers would say that it helps with quality of life, in terms of length of life also, it would say it would impact. And most papers that I read would say that it significantly improves psychological well-being when we look at self-care. Self-care behaviour is associated with a reduction in hospital admission rates. And there was an interesting study done here in Ireland, and they said that 60 to 80% of admissions to hospital for people with heart failure was down to poor self-care. So it was deduced from this that if the person was introduced to self-care and knew what they needed to be looking out for or doing at home, we could have prevented many, if not all, of these hospitalizations. So none of us want to end up in hospital. So if that can be your kind of motivation for the self-care piece, not ending up in hospital, that could be one thing. If you're thinking, I want to improve my quality of life, that can be another thing. So I'm going to do kind of like a how-to guide. So how to get kind of started on your self-care journey. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring you through the different areas of your care in heart failure and how you can impact that, even in areas where you feel like, oh, I didn't know I could impact that. Just to note, there are lots of things I'm going to talk about today. So I think it's like 7 or 8 different topics where you can, develop your self-care. And I don't want that to feel unmanageable or like just an insurmountable, a mountain that you just can't climb. Just there will be one thing, hopefully, that'll resonate with you where you think, I can do that. I could do that better. And that is going to be my aim. And if you take that one small step, you're further along the road than you were at the start of this talk. So that's all we want, just one step at a time. And whatever speaks to you today, whether it's, you decide you need to talk about it more, you need to sleep better, you need to be more on top of the medications, whatever it is that speaks to you, run with that, because that's the right thing for you on your self-care journey at this time. Trust your instincts, okay? So the first thing we're going to look at is medications. And this is something that we come up against with people living with heart failure all the time. They can be actually really frustrated about their medications. And they can feel like they actually have no control or very little control over what they can do with their medications and things like that, because they go to the doctor says to take it, gives them the prescription, and they feel that that's it. That's all they have to do. Well, that is definitely part of the story, and it's always advised to take medications as prescribed and to only not take them having had a conversation with your doctor or your pharmacist as to why it doesn't work for you. But there are other things that you can be in control of here, where you can manage things and improve your self-care. So you can, for example, report side effects. So you can note how you're feeling after the introduction of a new drug, or if say you have a change of dose, you can just again tune in, note how you're feeling. That's important. It's something to discuss with your doctor at the next appointment. If it's something that has changed how you're feeling and it's negative, well, you can discuss that even sooner and go to your pharmacist and seek their advice. You don't have to make an appointment with your pharmacist. In terms of medication, they are a brilliant first port of call. So really help develop the relationship with them. Moving on from there is about taking your medications as prescribed. So this is about taking the medications when they should be taken. So figuring out, finding out, asking the questions when. So should it be taken morning, afternoon, evening? Does it matter? If it doesn't matter, when suits you best? Figuring that out. Is it better if I take this with food, after food, or before food? Again, figuring out and how you can bring that into your life. If you decide, I've already touched on this, if you decide to change your medications, or if there is a decision to change your medications, don't do this on the advice of a chat with the neighbor who knows somebody who said this, or maybe you run out of a medication and you think, well, sure, that must be the end of that because there's none left. You need to be proactive in that sense. So if you feel you've run out of something, why have you run out of it? Is that the end of it? Find out, ask the question. So you can ask that question of your doctor and your medical team, or again, phone the pharmacy. What did the prescription say? Is there a repeat on it? And if you're wanting to change a medication, for example, we go back up to here where there's side effects or you have a concern around it, have the conversation. You are well within your rights and it's very reasonable to have that conversation with your doctor. So have the conversation. If your doctor isn't available, go to the pharmacist. Help them to help you understand what's going on here, what might be causing this side effect, for example, and what they would, what they'd advise as the best steps to get past this. Another thing that we hear a lot is when people are diagnosed, especially at first, they go to the doctor quite often. So their reviews are quite, they can be just a number of weeks apart. And they feel like the doctors and the medical team can't make up their mind because Their medications change at every appointment. And say I might have somebody who's just really gotten on top of their medications and they're delighted with themselves, you know, they feel like it's suiting them, they're happy, and then they go to the next appointment and they say, no, we're swapping out that for that, or we're increasing that dose to this. And that can be really frustrating. It can also be really confusing. This tends to happen at a time where people aren't feeling that well as well. So you have all this change, you have all the angst that goes with this new diagnosis, and now they're changing things again for you. This is a normal process at the start of your heart failure journey, where medications have been introduced, and they name it, they call it been titrated up. So they're titrating the medications up to the best dose for you. I would say, though, in how you can kind of help look after yourself, help understand it, is say, well, why? So what's the plan for this? Remind me again, what's this medication doing for me? Can I tell you that this is what this medication I think has caused for me, in terms of if there's a side effect there, or, you know, you feel like you don't want to push it at the moment. Why do you not want to push it? Why do they want to push it up? So figuring out, again, becoming part of the conversation, instead of just being told, this is what you're doing, and going home and feeling very maybe frustrated by that, you can stop and say, well, why are we increasing the dose of that? What does that mean? What is that going to do? And what are the implications in terms of side effects? How long will I need to be on this for? Is this the dose it's going to be at, or are we going up again? Again, just giving you a bit of control so that you know the next page in the story. It's not another surprise the next day. So in terms of your medication, open up your communication with your doctor, your medical team, and get to know that community pharmacist, because they're the person who you will easily access. Lots. You don't have to make the appointment. You can access them on the phone. You can access them in person. So build that relationship. We'll talk about some resources at the end that you can use to manage those medications, like pill boxes and stuff like that, if you feel that you need that help as well. So I'll come back to that. The next area that you can look after yourself with is through movement. So you can call it movement, you can call it exercise. I call it movement because exercise scares me anyway, and I think it scares other people as well, and sometimes puts us off. I think exercise can mean I need to join a gym, it needs to be fancy, I haven't enjoyed it before, maybe. It can sometimes have those negative connotations. So any movement is good, okay? Technically, in terms of exercise and movement, that's good for the conditioning of our heart and lungs, and that's what we're trying to do, as you know, when we're living with any chronic condition and heart failure, is that we should, or we're advised to do 30 minutes of exercise. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes together, so it can be 3 10s, so morning, afternoon, evening, or it could be 2 15s or a 20 and a 10, whatever works for you, but 30 minutes in your day. It should be moderate intensity. And people always ask that, like, what is moderate intensity? A moderate intensity just is that you've gone for the walk and you started the walk with the hat and the coat on, and by the end of the walk, the hat is definitely off, the coat is open. So you've raised your body temperature. You should always still be able to have a conversation, either with yourself or somebody, say, that you're walking with, but maybe that conversation isn't as easy. The thing that we say to people is that you should be able to have a chat, should be able to speak but not sing. So you mightn't be able to sing a song, you mightn't have enough breath for that, but you have enough breath to speak. So you've raised your body temperature. That means you've raised your pulse rate and your heart rate. You're improving the condition of those heart and lungs. This is going to develop kind of the endurance of your heart and lungs. And ideally we do this 5 days per week. It can be 7 days if that's what, you know, if your walk is good for you. And what I say about movement, it's good physically in terms of that endurance piece for your heart and lungs. But movement is also brilliant psychologically, because it can get us out of our own head. It gets us out the door. Somebody might smile at us, or we might smell a smell that gives us a nice feeling. If it's, you know, this time of year, there's lots of smells going on. We might also improve our health socially by engaging in movement. So we might meet a friend for a walk. And that can be very powerful. So this isn't all just about raising the heart rate and getting yourself sweaty and things like that. This is about the psychological well-being, the social well-being, and the physical well-being. And movement actually fits into all three of those parts of well-being. In terms of what should you do, well, I'm not going to tell you what you do. I think you should do something that you enjoy. So something that makes you feel warm, that makes you raise that body temperature, anything that does that. So if you like hoovering, you like doing your housework, you can do that and count it as your movement and exercise. If you like gardening, you can do that, but make sure you're doing it at an intensity where you're raising that body heat for a sustained period of time. I think the best type of exercise where you can measure the time, you can measure your consistency, is walking, if that's possible for you. But it is whatever you enjoy. And remember, every movement counts. So if you're starting out at 0 and you haven't been engaging in any or much movement, to go to 30 minutes moderate intensity exercise 5 days a week just mightn't be appropriate or achievable for you, and might stop you starting. Well, start at 5 minutes. In next week, go to 10 minutes. And within 6 weeks, you will be at that 30 minutes or close to it. And maybe 20 minutes is your max. And that's okay, because that's better than no minutes. Okay. Be mindful of long periods of like sedentary time. So if you're finding that you're sitting down in the evening at, 5 or 6 o'clock, and you're in the chair until 10 or 11, this is not good for your health in general, certainly not good for your heart health. So to try and break up those sedentary periods, and that's maybe even getting up to have the supper, get changed into the bedclothes, brush the teeth in the middle of that period. So ideally, you're aiming to get up out of that chair for about 5 minutes each hour if you can. I think with getting out and movement, you need to plan for it. So you need to get it in the diary. I'm going to walk Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to meet Mary on Monday and John on Wednesday, and, tie yourself in maybe with, a plan with somebody. So to meet the friend, that kind of locks you into it. You can't back out. Plan the time of day. So don't just say, I'm going to walk Monday for 30 minutes. I'm going to walk Monday morning in the park for 30 minutes. So that means you've given yourself a time limit there as well. So that planning thing, so that suddenly it's Wednesday and you haven't done anything, the planning in advance will stop that happening to you. Get your good gear. So get your rain jacket, make sure you're wearing your good walking shoes, things like that. And plan. The next area where we can look out for ourselves is through symptom awareness. The research would show that generally people have symptoms for at least 10 days before they seek help for it. So if you imagine your heart pump, if you're living with heart failure, is not working very well, if there's a problem with this and it's under more pressure than normal, we don't want it to be under more pressure than normal for 10 days and then seeking help. We want to get to it before that. So the minute you notice symptoms, you need to be on the blower, on the phone to the heart failure clinic, your GP, whoever is kind of looking after your care with you, just to check in, say, I've noticed this, and be on top of it. So you're not saying, oh, I'll see how I feel tomorrow. You're feeling it today, you understand it, you believe it, you make the call. And if it's a false alarm and they say, no, you're grand, maybe ring us in 2 days if it's still there, that's fine. But you've done your self-care piece, okay? You will never be sorry for making that call. Now, the problem with signs and symptoms in terms of heart failure is that they can be quite vague. So, and if they're coming on you at a time where you're not feeling well, so your head isn't as straight as you might like it to be. So you do need to be tuned in. So you need to take the time every day. And this could be like 10 seconds. This isn't a big job, but you do need to take the time every day. How am I feeling today? How did I feel when I got up, got dressed, brushed my teeth this morning and had my breakfast? Was I more fatigued? Am I flattened? Was I more breathless? Actually, I was when I was getting dressed. I'm not usually. Have I weighed myself? Is there any weight gain? Do my trousers feel more tight today, or my socks? Do I have this cough that's just came out of nowhere and isn't going away? Things like loss of appetite. So think, how am I feeling today? How did that breakfast feel? Oh God, yeah, no, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I noticed it yesterday. I didn't really have that appetite for the breakfast or the lunch I went out for or whatever. And then it's just feeling that you're slowing down or you're less able or you're less wanting. And I think sometimes we kind of think about ourselves as saying, oh, Janie, I'm after losing my motivation now. You know, I don't want to do that. Well, sometimes it's actually a symptom of things changing and your heart pumping under pressure. So if you're finding that you're maybe saying, no, I won't go to that event today that I plan to go to. I'm going to opt out of that. Don't always put it down to lack of motivation, or don't always put it down to a mood thing. Think, why am I not doing that? Is that physically just a step too far for me? And if it is, and if that's different for you, you're on the phone. The biggest red flag in all of these signs and symptoms is waking up from your sleep breathless, or finding that when you're lying down, you're worsening your breathlessness. So this means that there is likely to be fluid holding in your lungs, and this is a significant red flag. That would be one that you mightn't miss as easy. You know, you mightn't miss the weight gain as easy. You mightn't miss the swollen legs or abdomen as easy, but people do miss the fatigue, the breathlessness, the slowing down, the loss of appetite, and the dizziness. They kind of miss those things and put them down to other things. So sit with yourself every day. I think it's really good if you live with somebody, or if you're close to somebody that you see every day or every other day, that they're also aware of the symptoms and the signs, so that they can say, Janie, you know, Aileen, you don't seem yourself today. You seem a little bit breathless. Because again, these signs and symptoms happen when you're not feeling that well. And therefore you can be less aware, you know, your head isn't as straight. So having that extra couple of eyes on you, somebody that knows you, that trusts you, and having this conversation with them can be really beneficial. So sit with yourself and have your family or close friend or somebody who knows you well know what the signs and symptoms are as well. Okay, so the next part of self-care that you could look at will be at stress reduction and sleep. We'd all love to get this sorted. Again, this is a really big topic. We could do an hour and a half on this on its own. And we could do an hour and a half probably on each of these slides on their own. So if you do want any more information, I'm going to point you at the end of where you do get that more information. So don't worry if you feel I'm going through these too fast. So chronic stress can elevate blood pressure and heart rate. And this can put extra strain on the heart. Remember, your heart pump, if you're living with heart failure, is not working as effectively as you'd like it to. So extra strain is just a no-no. And that extra strain can exacerbate symptoms and increase risk of complications. So what do you do to manage stress? Again, self-care is all about, you know, going towards the end of things where you're going to look after yourself, where you're spending time doing things that you enjoy. So doing your hobbies, meeting your mates, spending time connecting with people and loved ones. Maybe stress reduction for you is reading a book and being on your own and doing some mindfulness and walking in nature. Maybe stress reduction for you is watching Love Island or some kind of rubbish reality TV, and that's okay. Whatever works for you, whatever kind of helps you switch off, is neutral for your mood. So it's not making you extra happy, extra sad. It's just you're there. That is stress reduction. Okay. I also think when you're living with a chronic condition like heart failure, and it has to be said, it's a scary diagnosis. I think sometimes people can live very much so only with the diagnosis, especially at the beginning. And what I would say to people is try and plan and be excited for future adventures. So something that's outside the heart failure realm. So that might be something as simple as maybe all you can do is plan for something next week. That's grand, you know, but do plan for it, and plan for something that's outside this diagnosis. Plan for something that's outside a medical appointment. Get something else in the diary. And even if that plan is for somebody to come over to sit with you watching the rubbish reality TV, maybe it's meeting somebody for lunch, maybe it's going on, you know, a break away. Again, it can be something really small or it can be something really big. It can be something really short term that you're planning for. It can be something medium or long term. But do plan, and don't try, should I say, not to have, you know, heart failure diagnosis, medical appointments, complete center of your focus at all times. Try and move that a little bit to one side and actually live the parts of your life that are in between all of those things. Sleep is a big part of stress reduction and general heart health also, and getting enough quality sleep allows the body to rest and repair, and this is essential for a weakened heart. So poor sleep can worsen your heart failure symptoms, and I would urge people who have any issues with their sleep, it is relevant. Talk to your medical team, tell them what the problems are. They may be able to help you with those problems. So just to be mindful that it is something that is relevant in the medical sphere if you're having problems with your sleep. Things that you can do is have good sleep habits. So you can have a regular sleep schedule. So going to bed and getting up at the same time, avoiding late nights or late mornings. So getting a relatively early night, definitely not lying in for ages in the morning. Getting some morning fresh air and light, that kind of resets our kind of circadian rhythm. Having a nice bedtime routine that you enjoy. So if that's, I don't know, having a shower, doing some meditation, if it's a cup of decaf, if it's again reading the book, whatever it is for you, having that good routine is important. And stay off devices for at least an hour before you go to bed, because the light in those devices tell our brains that it's not sleep time. So they totally can mess us up. Another thing that you can do in terms of your self-care is around smoking and alcohol. So cutting back on smoking or giving it up is the main aim. It makes your heart beat faster, and it puts a strain on your heart, which is already under strain. And it also reduces the amount of oxygen in the blood, making it harder for your heart to do its job. So I'm going to just refer you on to quit.ie. It's a brilliant resource that we have here in Ireland. You double your chances of quitting for good if you engage with quit.ie and use nicotine replacement therapy. And that has been shown consistently across many years of quit.ie. You sign up for free. It's a brilliant service. You can take as much from the service as you want or as little as you want. And I've yet to meet a quit.ie personnel who isn't like totally engaged and wanting to help the person. So even if you're not ready to quit, you can still engage with them, and they will help you to maybe move into a phase for readiness. They won't tell you, they're not going to make you, there's no pressure, but you can engage with them and say, look, I'm not ready. Do you have any kind of help for me in that regard? And they will. The second thing that we advise you to do in terms of drugs is alcohol. So we consider alcohol a drug. Alcohol can weaken your heart further. It can really affect the kind of the electrical part of the heart, so your heart rhythm, and basically putting your heart under pressure. And like I've said a million times now, your heart pump is already under pressure when you're living with heart failure. We don't want to push it any further, okay? For some people, alcohol really won't suit them in their heart failure, and they will be advised to give it up completely. For lots of people, they're not advised to give it up. They're just advised to manage it, be very mindful about how many units they're taking in. Of course, always avoiding binge drinking and things like that. I think this is a really good conversation to have with your team, to say that, look, I do drink this in a week. Be honest, be open. Do we think that that's a problem? Do you think, like, I enjoy my whatever tipple you have, your couple of glasses of wine or your couple of cans of beer or whatever your thing is. I really enjoy that. Is it reasonable for me to continue? So instead of it just been something that's unsaid, I won't say anything because I'm afraid of what they'll say. Let's open up the conversation, and then you can decide whatever you want. Remember, you're in charge, but it's good to have the information. So that's quit.ie for smoking, and ask about alcohol.ie for alcohol. But in terms of the alcohol piece, I would advise that conversation with your doctor, because it's not just as black and white as the smoking side of things. In diet and nutrition, so this is one we get asked for all the time. And For people living with heart failure, salt is where it's at. So reducing salt when you have heart failure is key. Because salt makes your body hold on to extra fluid. Extra fluid puts extra strain on that heart pump, and this can lead to exacerbation of your symptoms like shortness of breath. It can elevate your blood pressure, and it can make your heart work overtime. Cutting back on the salt helps you shed that excess fluid and eases the burden of the heart. So how much salt should we have in a day? So 1 teaspoon, 6 grams, it's a tiny amount. And I guarantee everybody in this call is probably having more than their 6 grams a day. So number one thing that you can do that's easy is take salt off the table. Do not have it on your table. Do not add salt at the table to your food, because if you're doing that, you're definitely going over your 6 grams. That's really difficult to do if you have developed that salt taste. I'm one of those people. I do love salt, and I really have to talk to myself about it. If you lower your salt, take the salt off the table, don't add it. At the start, food won't taste as good, and that's for sure. But after 6 weeks, your taste buds actually renew themselves, and you will get used to this new change, and you'll actually start getting a different, maybe more enjoyable, more full taste from your foods. So it is worth it. You can also replace salt with pepper, chili flakes, and other kind of herbs and seasonings that won't have a negative impact on your heart health. Foods high in salt are the ones listed here. So your processed meats, so rashers and sausages. I'm not saying you can never have a rasher or a sausage again, but if they're in your weekly shop, that is too much. Okay, so you're trying to avoid them. Things like ham, your baked beans, have a look for the low salt version or the no salt version of those. All kind of processed fast foods, takeaway foods will be salty, and I can say all without worry, because most of them, nearly all of them are. Tinned soups, and even some of the fancy, which look like homemade soups, and the fancy cartons and things, often most of them are really high in salt. So just to be mindful, have a look at the salt content in them, knowing that you shouldn't have in total more than 6 grams of salt in the day. Condiments are a devil, so like ketchup, gravy, curries, pasta sauces, things like that. That's not to say that you can't have any of those, but look out for the lower salt versions of these. So there is low salt, no salt gravy. There is low salt, no salt curry pastes. There is low salt, no salt ketchups. So they exist. So you just need to seek them out, okay? And also in stock cubes, you can get no salt stock cubes now, which are great. So like you're swapping your sausages and cured meats for like chicken, turkey, or lean meat, and then just limiting other kind of high salt foods in the diet. The final part where you can really look after yourself, and this is one that you will develop. So most people aren't, ready for this at the start. They've gotten this massive diagnosis. Everybody else is an expert in it, but they're not, but actually it's happening to them. So attending today's talk, you're developing your ability to become your own spokesperson. You are the center of that multidisciplinary care team. That multidisciplinary care team of all the nurses and the dietitians and the doctors and all that, they don't exist without you. You are the center of that. So please don't be silent in that. Have yourself heard. And that's not just challenging that multidisciplinary team. That's not really what I mean. I mean, it's more engaging with them, asking the questions, but like, why? I'm wondering why that happened. Could you explain that to me again? I've forgotten this. I was hoping to do that. I'm drinking this amount of alcohol. Is it okay? I don't like that medication. Why am I on it? Is there another option? So be your lead spokesperson. Open communication is key. Ask the questions. Express your concerns. Seek clarification about your condition, about how it's progressing, how it's improved. Seek a treatment plan. Where are we going next? Just so that you're not on this road where you are not in control of the sat nav. You know, it's horrible. Do you know the way when you're going somewhere and you don't have a clue where you're going, you don't know how long the journey will be? That's not a nice feeling. Whereas if you ask, well, how long is this journey going to be? How long is it going to take? Are we taking a left or a right up here? You know, so they're the questions you're going to ask of your medical team. And how long will I be on this medication? And how high does the dose go up? And remind me again why I'm on it. And that way you enter into this kind of shared decision making with your team. So instead of receiving care, you're in the care, you're part of the care. So engage with that medical team. Engage sometimes with peers can help you improve your ability to be heard and improve your kind of confidence to be heard. So maybe talking to other people living with heart failure in a group setting or one-to-one or online. There's lots of different resources that we can provide you here at the Irish Heart Foundation, and we can talk more about those to you. I'll give you ways to contact us if you're interested in that. So be your lead spokesperson. Here's a couple of tools, or more than a couple of tools, that might help you kind of on your journey of self-care. So we have the Fluid Heart Tracker app. So this is where you can weigh yourself daily, which you should. So you're weighing yourself daily to make sure that there's no fluid buildup. So that's part of your symptom monitoring. You don't want to gain more than 2 kilos in 7 days, or that's 4 pounds in 7 days. If you use the Fluid Heart Tracker app, you don't have to write it down anywhere. You don't have to do the maths and look at how has the last week been, and how is it since yesterday, and how is it since last week, and you're doing all the maths all the time, or you run out of pages in the notebook, or the pen is gone again. The Fluid Heart Tracker is brilliant. You just put it in and it will alarm if you have gained the in excess of the weight that's considered normal in the last 7 days. People are often don't want to weigh themselves because it's tied into their weight and their body image and all of that kind of thing. Just imagine you're just putting your, fluid on the scales. It's nothing to do with weight. It's nothing to do with fatness or thinness. It's keeping you well. It's keeping you out of hospital, and you'll see that fluid build up on the scales days before you'll feel it in your ankles or your clothes or your appetite. So, having that daily weight is really key. And I think the Fluid Heart Tracker app allows you to disengage from writing it down every day and having to take it in. You're just putting these numbers into this machine and forgetting about it. It will tell you. Having a digital scales is good. Having it in kilos is good because it's not as finicky as the stones and pounds. So digital scales and kilos, I think, works better for people. Do whatever works better for you. The food shopping cart, we're going to share a link to this. This is brilliant. I have one of these in my wallet. You can get it like in a credit card size. If you phone us up, we can send you out a paper one of these, or you can download it from the website, and it will show you what's low, high, etc. in salt, and it's salt really what you're looking at. And then I did just touch on it earlier, to use pill boxes, especially at the start or even all the time when things have been changed up all of the time, and they're changing medications constantly. It can be really confusing. Also, if you're not feeling well, it can be very easy to confuse medications. So just the pill boxes can be just very helpful in that regard. This is a new resource from the Irish Heart Foundation. It's called Take 3 Beats. This is all around self-care. So it's asking you, have you taken your medication? Have you weighed yourself today? And have you checked in with how you're feeling? If you stick this up on the back of your medicine cabinet or beside wherever you're weighing yourself, and just take that, 1 minute just to sit with it, you're winning. You're ahead of the game. If that's the only thing you take from today, we're good. The link to that is also going to be posted in the comments here, so you'll be able to download it from there. If you phone us up, we can send you out a paper copy. So self-care is not selfish. Self-care puts you on a path to less hopelessness, less helplessness. You're in charge, you're empowered. It will also keep you out of hospital and improve your quality of life. So you're taking your medications, you're keeping involved with that. You're enjoying healthy movement. You're monitoring your symptoms every day. You're reducing your stress, and you're prioritizing quality sleep. You're quitting or reducing smoking and alcohol. You're reducing your salt. And number 1, you're speaking up. All right, if you start to speak up, you will learn all about these other things because you'll express your concerns and you can have conversations. Our supports here at the Irish Heart Foundation are numerous. I always say the best gateway to get in and chat to us is to call the nurse support line. It's open Monday to Friday in the morning times generally. If you call and we're not available at that time, you just leave a message and we'll give you a call back later that day or the next day. The number is here on screen, or you can email us indeed at support@irishheart.ie. All these other services like Heart Connect, which is a telephone-based service where we call you over several calls just to kind of help you on your journey towards self-care. Our counselling service, which is available free to people, our peer support, which we can provide in group or one-to-one, and then we've other short courses like mindfulness, psychoeducation course called Activate Your Life, different bits and pieces like that. So there's just so much that we could go through, but what I would say is if you're interested in finding anything more about anything in relating to your heart failure, pick up the phone, call that nurse support line, or email support@irishheart.ie, and we should be able to guide you on the right path.